Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm Nick Daschel and I cover Oregon State football for the Oregonian and OregonLive. Did the Beavers take a peek at rock bottom Saturday? It kind of looked that way on both sides of the ball. They were pretty ineffective in a 28-0 loss at Air Force. It is the Beavers' fifth consecutive loss. The season is probably down to two more games unless the Beavers can find a way to spring a couple of upsets here and get to 6 wins. Joining me now, as always, is former Oregon State defensive end Isaac Hodgins. Isaac, where did you watch the game?
Well, I watched the game from home. I honestly didn't know which game I wanted to turn off, which I wanted to turn off most, either the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight or the Air Force Oregon State game. Because I don't know, I was tempted to turn off the Oregon State game if it wasn't for this. If it wasn't for this podcast, I probably would have tuned out just because of my anger and fury that game. But to get shut out by our Air Force, I didn't even think I couldn't even. I don't think either of us could have predicted that. So, um,
No,
yeah,
I thought they'd win. I thought I thought it'd be close. I thought they'd win. I
yeah,
didn't see that coming. But then I went into it thinking, Gulbranson was probably going to play,
right.
and that was a factor for sure. But
Was there any
um,
insider information you could garner on that, or
well, I think I know, but I don't want to say unless I can confirm it. So
okay,
it's medical from what I understand. It's not a you know he's mad or I think it's medical. So
yeah? You
so
saw
it's
something?
not it's not anything more nefarious than that. It's that. So
Yeah, that was definitely
but
unfortunate to see him not.
I thought I'd start off with is I was at the game obviously, and Air Force it's I'm not gonna say it's unique, but it's certainly different than most stadiums you go to. I was standing in the end, to the back of the end zone. In the fourth quarter, Air Force scores, and then all of a sudden these 500, about roughly 500, fully dressed airmen come running out of the stands, and they practically run over you. They're in such a hurry to get to the back of the end zone and do 28 push-ups. I'm just going, man.
Gee,
They were into it, and then
was the
you know
student
all.
section pretty lively or what?
Oh yeah, well they were rolling, and oh yeah, they were. Yeah, it was a pretty good sized crowd, but they're all in their dress blues, and
Yeah,
it's there was, but yeah, that was kind of fun to watch. Even though, like I said, I almost got killed getting run over, but
yeah.
all the signs at the place. That there's a couple of signs there that remind you you're at 6,600 feet. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, there's one right next to the locker room, right as the visitors come out. I'm sure it's there for a reason to
Yep.
remind you that you're going to
Mind
be
games.
sucking.
It's
Yeah, you're going to
it's
be sucking it
mental
in the fourth quarter,
warfare, hearts and
right?
minds.
And then the band, it's kind of cool watching the bands Oregon State and Air Force bands collaborate on music. I watched it before. I was there a couple hours early in the stadium. I was watching some of that, and you just felt like there's a lot of pride on the line at that stadium. And the stadium was really clean too. It was just all the signage, everything just felt clean at that place. But I don't know
I'm
what's.
sure the flyover didn't hurt either, huh?
Oh, yeah, except it kind of came out of the. I thought it was going to go right over the top of the field. It kind of came out over the top of the press box, and so
Uh,
you didn't get to see the full effect of it. But yeah, it was cool for sure. I had some video of it, but
yeah.
um, what? So of all the stadiums you visited, over your career, which one? Which one kind of stood out to you? And you were.
I think the ones that stood out to me I was always sad that I couldn't go to the USC one. I always wanted to play in that stadium. Um, I would say just the best stadiums I would say I liked playing in the most were obviously my first ever college football game at Ohio State. Like the field shaking and it's just red and white everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
and then I really liked playing at Arizona State. I love playing on real grass and it was hot. It was just we always played them during the time of year where it's always raining, and then you get off the tarmac and it's 75, and you're sun tanning during the day waiting
Yeah.
for this night game. But I really like their facilities and everything. Like we get to walk past their weight room, and they have in their weight room it says Faith Family Football. So I thought that was really cool. Um, and I think Colorado is a super cool place to play too. Um, Obviously grass field and whatnot, and I don't know, their stadium's pretty unique. So I would say those are kind of
Yeah,
my
I
top
remember.
three.
So the USC game, you did you even go to that or
No,
as
I
a
was at home watching on TV. I was sad I missed that one for sure. Especially it was such
yeah,
a
that was a
historic game for Oregon State too. I was like, man, I wish I was part of that.
yeah, I think I remember it was like 45-27 or something like that. It was
Yeah, that was an
kind of
awesome game.
one-sided for the old Beavs. Yeah, you played at Arizona too, didn't you? I mean,
I traveled to that game last year, but I didn't play. But I have played in Arizona Stadium.
yeah, 2019 you played down there.
2019, I played there. Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
yeah,
The USC one is funny because Coach Mack, I mean, our strength staff, they're in charge of the music that's played at practice. The only song that played that entire week leading up to the USC game was their fight song. With
yeah.
the everyone knows their Trojan
Nah,
song.
nah, 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 nah,
Yep,
yeah,
all
that whole
day
thing.
on repeat every single day. It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Made you hate it.
I mean, of the stadiums Oregon State played regularly, I mean, and now it's a different rotation, obviously, but I mean, the Rose Bowl is that place is
Oh yeah, I forgot that one. That their locker room was awesome. I mean, it's like NFL caliber locker room, right? So I mean, that was my
yeah.
favorite locker room for sure. Because sometimes you go to these stadiums, actually all the time you go to these stadiums, the visiting locker room is horrible. Like it's so bad. It's just super tight, and it's. I mean, but we went to the Rose Bowl, man. It was beautiful. Got
Of course, your number one favorite stadium was Autzen, I'm sure, but
uh,
um,
their visiting locker room is the worst. The worst.
well, their post game media is not it's not good either. Outside, it's in like this tent outside your locker room.
Yeah, those
It's
guys are
not good
gross.
either. They yeah. What was the worst stadium you ever for locker rooms of the six years? What was the worst one?
The worst situation was Utah 2020 because they were doing the whole renovation on their stadium, right? There wasn't even a building we were in. It was like a pop-up, like somehow insulated tent. It
Yeah,
was just a big white tent, and your bathroom that you could use was just like a porta potty, and then the showers were like one of the showers that they have like in a trailer type of deal. So it's like a trailer shower or something. It was horrible. That was the worst. That was the worst visiting kind of locker room experience ever. It's just gross and just bad.
I mean maybe not the locker room, but the worst setup to me of the years you were there. Fresno State had to be pretty close to the top
Fresno State,
because
Fresno State wasn't too bad.
because you're walking from the stadium to the locker room, and all you got are fans just cussing you out,
Oh
just
yeah,
dog
but
cussing you the
that's
entire
fun as a
time.
player, as a player when you're walking and you got the opposing fans cussing you out and little 10-year-olds flipping you the bird. I mean, that's like motivation right there. I mean, get you pumped, especially after you win a tight game like we won. I mean, that's the best. It's the best.
Yeah, maybe for guys like you, but there's other guys I noticed on your team that didn't take it too well, and
Yeah.
there were coaches that had to pull them away and get them into the locker room because
Yeah,
they wanted to have a piece of somebody.
guys like me, Jake Levingood, Taliesin, we're kind of psychopaths, so we
Yeah,
enjoy it. We
I
love
mean,
it.
if you take it the right way, you just think it's funny. I mean, that'd be that it
Yeah, it
would
is.
be good, I guess.
Yeah,
Of course, if you had lost that game, walking to the locker room, you wouldn't have felt the same way though,
yeah, it'd
for
be a
sure.
heck of a lot worse, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But man, it's the best.
yeah. Well, we've 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 we've, we've delayed long enough here. I thought I was going to start here with I wrote some takeaways from today from the game. I wrote them while I was coming back on the plane today, and I thought I'd run some of them by you just to see kind of what you thought, but and a
Okay.
lot of them really aren't necessarily have to do with the game, but I just thought, the first one I kind of walked about is just it's just kind of the feeling of hopelessness and that, you know, I guess Trent came in, he met with the team early on before, after he got the job and said, I think we got a CFP roster, we can make a run at it. And then even in the summer, I asked him, um, do you still believe this is college football playoff, a team that could make a run at? Oh yeah, well, I mean, that doesn't even come close to being true. I mean, what do you think he missed?
I think I think the biggest thing everyone kind of missed was the depth. I think the depth of the team just wasn't there, right? Like one or two injuries and just like everything kind of collapsed. Like after Jam got hurt, we had a key offensive lineman get hurt. And then for a stretch of a few games, we had some guys on defense who were missing. I think just the depth of our team just wasn't college football playoff ready whatsoever. Not even bowl game eligible ready, right? Like you've got to have depth to where it's like, hey, next man up, there's no drop off. I can't say that same thing is true for this team. And obviously that comes with the territory of kind of you have so many guys leave, so many experienced guys leave. Even the guys who are the number one for the majority of this team who are starters, I mean, they don't have a ton of experience. So then you go
Yeah,
to your number two guy, they have even less experience, and they're just the depth wasn't there. I think this season.
yeah. Well, I mean, do you think maybe he was just, I don't want to say caught up in the moment of trying to get this thing going, trying to sell the players on a vision, but I mean, maybe in retrospect, you go, let's see how this thing comes together. And, I believe, we got a good team, but, I don't really, until we see it on the field, I don't know. It just felt like, and fans are kind of, they're upset, obviously, because they were sold that, hey, we're going to be this team. And,
Yeah.
that was obviously not even close to accurate. Now, I would say that had he said, yeah, I think we can make a run at a bowl game, I mean, everybody would have bought that. That felt doable. And
Right, but I mean,
but
what coach or CEO, because that's what he is. He's a CEO, right? Like, who's gonna set that as the bar? Like, yeah, maybe we could make a bowl game. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to say, like, hey, we this is a championship season. Like, I mean, you understand. I think he fully understood. I mean, Coach Bray is super football smart. I think he fully
yeah,
understood kind of what he was going into this year. But, at the same time, you got to sell a vision. And, like, you can, despite not maybe having the exact talent or experience level or depth you may need to make a run, um, crazier things have happened. I mean, like, look at Army. They're undefeated right
yeah.
now. Like, I think you really did have a chance to possibly make that run if you kept Oregon a little tighter and then you kept this momentum rolling from this, I mean, we're on a hot streak at the beginning of the season. You just kept that rolling. But I think those big injuries at those key points kind of stopped the momentum we had and just shut us down. So I think there was some
I
hope, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think what was missed was this team just didn't have enough senior experienced players on. And you've seen that from Cal, UNLV, from you're going to see it from Boise State, Washington State, Oregon. They've got veteran guys at a lot of positions, and Oregon State didn't have that. And even if you believe these guys were going to be good, I mean, it still pays off if you've got guys that have been in the fire and have done
Right.
this before. That seems like what was missed to me.
Yeah.
But
And I think it's
I'm
also
just
having the right guys who've kind of been in the fire, right? Like, I mean, you have Josh Gray, super experienced and kind of carry this offensive line, but, um, that's not really, it's great for the team culture, but like at the end of the day, you got to be able to throw the ball, you got to be able to catch the ball, right? You got to
Yeah.
be able to protect this guy. You're the guy who's behind you, whoever it is. At this point, we don't really we don't really know. We kind of think we know we have a guy,
Yeah.
but I'm not too confident about who that it's going to be for the next two games. Uh, but you got to be able to
Yeah.
protect this guy, and like you kind of said, I just think you need to have the experience in the right places, right? I don't think we have that.
Well, then, the next question, the next thing I went to was coaching. The question is, is it coaching? And I can't really say. I'm not there every day. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't. Fans obviously don't know either. Fans look at the sideline and see guys down a little bit, and they immediately think, "Oh, they've checked out. They're quitting." I mean, they don't know what's going on with players on the sideline unless they're punching each other or something. I mean, that
Right.
something that obvious maybe, but I mean, there's so much stuff that goes on you just don't know about. But are there some signs that you would look for that you would wonder if the coaching is getting through to the players?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just if the same mistakes are happening on tape and on film. And like honestly, I'd have to like sit down and really break down the film to see it. Um, but you know, coaching at its finest is simply you are just facilitating, hey, like the growth of a player, of an individual. If a player isn't able to take your coaching and then apply it and not make the same mistake again, either one, he's not coachable and it's the player, or two, he's not being coached right. So I think that's what I would look at most is if a person is making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, that could be a possible indicator of like, hey, some coaching is wrong.
Yeah,
But I also think of it strategically, just like, I don't know how fast or soon they knew that Ben Gulbranson wasn't going to play. But I think at that moment where he's not playing, you gotta make a plan and go forward with it. It didn't seem like there was a plan, because you were switching quarterbacks every series. Unless that was the plan, and I don't think that's a good plan. Unless it's a good plan if you're doing a scrimmage. I don't think it's a good
yeah,
plan if you're playing a football game and you're trying to actually win. Um, so I just think that plan wasn't good of switching the quarterbacks back and forth. And then on TV, uh, but before the second half started, or I think with the first drive of the second half, one of the reporters asked Coach Bray like, "Hey, what was the decision to make? What quarterback are you running with?" He's like, "Oh yeah, Jabari Johnson. He showed us better in practice. He showed us better looks in practice." And I was just like, he just kind of said it like, "Oh, we needed to go with a guy, so we picked the guy." Just like we just picked the guy to go with. Like, I don't know how I felt about that decision and um,
yeah,
just the game
yeah.
plan
I don't.
overall.
I mean, and maybe that's where some of the coaching staff's inexperience is coming in. You know, Trent's in his first year as head coach. Gundy's really in his first year as a coordinator. Some guys on the defensive side that haven't really, been at their particular position, all that long. You kind of wonder if, that inexperience is, like the players, it's a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. All like you said, I don't know what's going on day to day. But I just think strategically, what was like, I mean, we could all look back, right? Hindsight's 2020, be like, oh, that was a bad decision, right? You know, because we saw the outcome of the game. But I just know as a player, and then I think Coach Bray knows as a player, like when you don't have like the guy at quarterback and you don't have like a solid plan, it's just kind of like what's the roles here? Like who do I listen to? Like what's going on here? Um,
Yeah.
and I just kind of felt like that was the vibe of the game of just like, we're just gonna I feel like you got to go into the game like, hey, we're rolling with number 4 or we're rolling with number 5. Like, we're picking one and we're rolling with them. They did that second half, right? They picked a person, they rolled with them. I think you just got to do that the whole game. I
Yeah.
think that person should have been McCoy because he had actually won games previously this year for them. So That's who I would naturally go
Yeah,
with.
maybe. I just he looks like he's just his confidence is just shot. He just doesn't. He's not the same guy that we saw a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
He's I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't,
I thought he looked more I thought he looked more confident and comfortable than number 5, just because Johnson. It was like he was doing his first read and he just take the ball down and just run, just take off. It was just like you know. Honestly, if I'm a defense playing the Oregon State Beavers offense, I'm just bringing the house. I'm gonna just blitz these guys every play because they can't. If their number one wide receiver is not, we're gonna just play tight coverage for 1 to 2 seconds, and our pressure is gonna get home. Just because you just
yeah.
saw both quarterbacks are just panicking under pressure, just completely shutting down, dropping their eyes, and just trying to run. And I mean, that seems like the
Have you watched the receivers to see? Are they getting? Do you think they're getting open? I mean, it's just Trent Walker's got 65 catches out of the receivers have 119 catches. I'm not counting tight ends. He has 65 of their 119 catches. I mean, I know they're young there, but gosh, that's not good.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's like they're just not getting. I mean, at the end of the day, like there's athletes all across the board, but like you've got to get separation or you got to win at the point of like contest, at the point of contest, right? Like if the defensive back is on you, like you got to win the 1-on-1. And I don't see a lot of 1-on-1s being made, like being won. And then I just see a lot of like you're not helping the quarterback. Like that one ball where he does throw it on target and like you're just dropping the ball. It's like, what are we doing? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like everyone's morale is kind of shot and just down, just across the board. Uh, that's
Yeah,
how
I
it
mean,
kind of
and
seems
that
to me.
and that kind of goes for the defensive side too on those 50-50 balls. I thought there were, Air Force only threw 6 balls yesterday, but I felt like there's like 3 or 4 of them that were 50-50s. They won every one of them.
Right. And that's something you look at as a team, and you're just like, we're not winning our 1-on-ones. Like we're not lining up against this guy. Like I'm gonna beat you in this 1-on-1 matchup. This play right here, right now, and it shows. Like I mean, what Air Force was 8 for 12 on third downs, and they were 1 for 1 on fourth down. Like that's losing football. That
Yeah,
is just they're over 60%. They're close to 70% conversion rate on third down. Like that's
yeah.
horrible.
Well, some of the issue though is offensively. Um,
You're not on the field.
Earlier in
You're
the
always on
year
the field as a defense.
they were getting third and threes and third and twos. Now they're running a lot of third and sevens and third and tens and third and 12s, and
Yeah,
so the first and second down they're not winning in those downs, and they're getting killed, on third down.
yeah. And then when you only have the ball for what? I think the whole game we had a possession of 18 minutes or something like that.
Yeah,
Like you're on the field the whole entire game as a defense. And this is a physical game. Like this is like, hey, buckle your chin strap, bite down on your mouth guard, bow up your neck, because this is going to be, hey, we're hitting you in the face every single play. And that wore us down obviously over the long haul. Um, but I think that's the problem of not being able to get the run game going. You're not in these third and manageable positions, and you don't
yeah.
have an offense that can handle 3rd and 10. Like what play is Oregon State going to run to convert a 3rd and 10? Have you seen all year? You know what I mean? Like I don't feel comfortable in that position. I'm
Well,
like,
there's only two guys. There's only two guys they seem to be able to rely on is Jermaine Terry and Trent Walker. I mean, that's
yeah,
pretty much it.
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, there's
the
just
rest of them occasionally make a play. But I just wonder, are they getting? Are you seeing them getting separated from their guy, or and
no.
and the quarterback's not finding them, or
I just think the pure answer is no. I'm not seeing separation, but also from where I'm watching, all I'm seeing is kind of the quarterback under panic, under duress the whole entire game. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to tell. Like you're not really letting routes and plays develop because you're getting hit, you're getting sacked every other play. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's it's tough.
Is some of that an O line issue too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an O. I don't. I think it's an O-line issue. Honestly, I'll just be candid. I've played against a lot of the guys on the offensive line, and so um, I definitely think there was a lot of one-on-ones that were lost up front. Um, and I think also it's a combination of that and they're bringing 6, 7 guys a play. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
these third down situations, when Air Force brings 6 guys, you only got 5 guys to block, or a running back who's kind of checking in but wants to get out on a route. It could go either way, but yeah, I definitely don't feel
I mean,
confident about anything right now about Oregon State football.
we're talking about a defense that going into yesterday's game had 8 sacks all season. Air Force.
Yeah,
They had 5 yesterday.
yeah,
I mean, they darn near had a season's worth in one game.
yeah,
They what's going to happen when they play Boise State, which is number 2 in the country in sacks?
right.
I mean,
And that was kind of I talked with I have a friend who's on the Air Force defensive line. He's actually really good. He's I think he's the number one. He was telling me he's the number one PFF rated defensive tackle in the country. Like he's a good player, and I saw him. He was doing some good stuff against us. But that was just kind of his sense too. It was like he just felt like we had Oregon State had no game plan going into the game. It was just kind of like Air Force could just tee off and do whatever they wanted. You know what I mean? Like they were out there having fun and just flying around, and it showed. Like they were playing fast, they were playing physical. It looked like Air Force was the Pac-12 team, and then Oregon State was the Mountain
yeah,
West team coming in. That's how it
yeah.
looked.
And I want to be able to say here as well. I know this crushes you to even have to talk about this stuff because I mean you don't want to talk about you don't want to talk crap about your former team, but
Yeah,
I mean it's just so obvious that
yeah,
I mean nobody's looking to pile on Trent Bray or the offensive coordinator or the offensive line, but it just is what it is right now.
yeah.
It's not working.
And I love those guys, and I obviously will always love Coach Bray and every offensive lineman on that team, the ones that I know at least. Um, but what we called it was a truth room, and obviously this isn't the truth room, but we're just two old farts, talking about what we see on the TV. You know what I mean? Um, so
Yeah.
it, it's just one of those things. Like you said, you just kind of can't hide it. I mean, when when teams are just able to go out there and do whatever they want, like they imposed their will on us yesterday, and it's back to drawing board, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and then I got into a little bit, it's not gonna be long we're into December. And come December, you're gonna have to sign a new class. And then, that first week, I think there's gotta be a lot of hard conversations with guys. Are you do you fit our program or not? And I gotta believe there's some guys that are just gonna have to go, not really.
Yeah,
And other guys, they have to decide, okay, you look like you're a guy that, we need for next year at
yeah,
26 and whatnot. But
and
but then beyond that, they're gonna have to transfer portal hard
yeah,
and
and
get some dudes.
that's what I love about Coach Bray, and that's why I think he was a good pick for this team to lead this team. And I still think he's a good person to lead this team. Like this is the long game here. Uh, like he's gonna build a culture that can build this program back up. And if I'm Coach Bray, what I would like to do is I'm in Coach Candido's ear, I'm in the strength coach's ears, and I'm like, hey, keep your eyes out, keep your ears open. Who are the guys? Who are the guys that need to go? Because that's the beautiful thing about the position that the Oregon State Beavers are in right now. The cream and being the cream, let's say is the bad guys. Like they're gonna rise to the top. The cream rises to the top. Let's like the guys who you need to get out of your program, they're gonna rise up. You're gonna see them. It's gonna be plain. It's gonna be obvious. And I think there's no more obvious place to see it than in the weight room. Because in the weight room, there's no coaches there. There's no position coaches there, right? So there's no one
Yeah,
who's like, oh, I need to just show for my position coach so I get more playing time, right? You're getting guys real how they act, what they want to do. what their conversations are like. Like, we're going to see who are the guys who are bringing down this program. Like, let's get them out of here. And that was the biggest thing I saw when I was on losing teams. Those guys always reveal themselves, and you got to get rid of them. You got to cut them out. And obviously, you got to hit the transfer portal hard. You got to do good recruiting. And I know Coach Bray's a hell of a recruiter. So
Yeah.
I think there's hope for this
Well,
program.
I almost think it'd be better for this team not to get to a bowl game from the standpoint of just make December about getting this program right again.
Yeah.
A bowl game feels like you got the coaching staff and players sort of distracted with the bowl, and when you really need to work on what do we really want to look like in 25, and get the coaches out hitting the ground running with transfers and thinking about everything other than 15 bowl practices.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's some value to those practices, but I feel like there's more value right now to, just taking a deep breath and figuring out what the hell is going wrong here.
Right. And I think that's going to have to be, a lot of long nights, I mean, you'll see Coach Bray's car probably in the parking lot all day, all night for the next whatever amount of months, as long as he's not recruiting, you know what I mean? And so I kind of agree. I also think you gotta build up these guys to get some more confidence in themselves. I think those bowl practices could help, and then I also think attending a bowl game and kind of salvaging the most you can from the season could help with recruiting. So I see kind of both sides.
Yeah.
But obviously, as a coach, you don't want to throw in the towel and just be like, let's just start building for next year. Even
No, I
though
mean, you
naturally
can't.
that's what you want to do, right? Naturally, that's what we all think. Like, let's just cut the season right now and just start recruiting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you just can't.
I mean, as a coach, obviously you can't say that, but
Yeah.
outsiders, we can say that because it feels like that's what needs to happen. And
Yeah.
privately, there might be some guys saying that too, but they can't say it publicly.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I
but
think, honestly, more of what we need to do than hit the transfer portals, we need to start hitting the donor portal or whatever it is. We need to start finding some donors and getting some alumni to start pouring back into this NIL collective so we could hit these high school kids up who were expecting Lamborghinis when they show up on campus. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, if you got a guy that wants a Lamborghini right out of high school, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that was the other thing I was going to ask you. You've dealt with damnation a little bit, and you've talked to guys obviously that have to. I mean, do you feel like that the resources are there to strike, or do they need a lot more money to make
I think
to
the
get the guys
resources.
they
I
need?
think the resources can be there. It just it just seems like whoever's in. I don't know. It seems like whoever's in charge of it. It's kind of like, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to open that can of worms. Um, yeah, it's probably a different ball game too, because I think the school can directly start paying players now, right?
Not quite, but they're getting there.
Yeah. So I think when
You
that
can bring
happens,
it in house. I think starting next year, but still, I don't think this off season's still about the collective, and it could be for the future too. There's some nuances to bringing it in house versus keeping it outside that
yeah,
have to be figured out. But
I think it's tough to honestly, like, from my perspective, I think it's also tough just, the world of Oregon State as it is. What's hard about Oregon State football is you kind of almost have to rebuild the program every single time you get a new coach or something changes, because there's not that like school support that's supporting the football program. It's more
yeah,
of just like, I was pumped when I forget who was the president. Um he came from LSU, I believe, and then he
oh,
came.
F King Alexander.
Yeah, and then he got fired from some scandal that he was a part of at LSU. But that was the only time my entire college football career where the president of the university came to a football practice. Like he
Oh,
came
really?
to a football practice and after practice introduced himself, like said he's going to go all in on our football program, he's going to make our football program good, like he's going to invest in it, all this kind of stuff, right? I never saw that before with any other school president. And it's just like that's the main problem in my opinion. There's not enough school support to the football program. And honestly, I think that's why they lose the Coach Smiths of the world and they because these guys are competitive. They want to go win a college football playoff. They want to go win a championship, a college football championship, but you can't without the support of your school. And so,
Yeah.
I think there's a bigger problem overall. But that's just my little soapbox
Yeah,
for tonight.
I just don't, but if you got to go pay a guy 200 grand, let's say, to get yourself I don't know. Well, quarterbacks go for, a good quarterback. I mean, we've been hearing that the Washington State quarterback, John Mateer, has been offered $1 million
Oh yeah, I don't
to,
think we have that money.
no,
I'll be frank
but
about that.
could you get, but to get a quarterback, he's at Oregon State, you probably still got to pay somebody $500,000.
Oh yeah,
I mean, and I don't know, do they have those, is that, I don't know. And trying to get those answers out of anybody, forget it. I mean, they, I've been saying we need more transparency on this stuff. If I'm a fan, I don't want you saying, yeah, we need more of your money. Well, how much do you need? Well, we just need more money.
right.
I just feel like that's not good enough. I need a number.
Yeah,
What do you need? You know,
I agree. We
so
need a damn collective efficiency group or something.
I don't know what they need.
Maybe
Man,
me
we're
and
getting
Nick
out.
Daschel could be the heads.
We're getting out of it. But a couple things about a couple of things I wrote about was the quarterback position. It's just become, it's just a mess right now, and I don't know that anything's going to get solved between now and the end of the season. I think from what I've seen, the only thing that will change is if Ben Gulbertson comes back, and whether that happens, I don't know. But if he does come back, I feel like, they got a shot to move the ball down the field. He's got to eliminate a lot of some of those mistakes he made against San Jose State, but I think he gives them their best chance to do something. The other two, I'm just not. I just don't know. I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. At this point, it's kind of like who gives you the best chance. But even at this point, it's kind of like no one of the quarterbacks has gotten, other than McCoy, has gotten enough playing time throughout the
Yeah,
season to be able to be like, hey, I feel confident and comfortable with their decision making ability on the field. Uh, because at this point, most quarterbacks have 8, 9 games under their belt, and they're
yeah,
they're playing their best football right now. It's like we're
yeah,
kind of on the downtrend of that.
yeah. Another one I wrote about was the receivers. We kind of touched on that already. I felt like, and then the defense. I felt like I sort of felt like they got lost yesterday and in the criticism because the offense was so bad. It felt like we forgot they didn't really show up that well either. But they did have some moments. There were Dexter Foster had he had 13 tackles. I think Skylar Thomas had 11. Um, but I mean they just lost first and second down way too many times
Yeah,
yesterday and gave Air Force.
I think the only thing I'm seeing defensively is just the fundamentals of like tackling. It's just like something so simple of just like, hey, we need to get this guy on the ground and stop letting him leak yards. I just saw too many times people were leaking yards after first contact. It just
Yeah.
didn't look like good, fun, foundational defensive football.
I mean, I was talking to Dexter Foster after the game, and he said, we're going to go home and flush this one, and move on to, and I said, you sure you want to flush this game? I mean, it feels like there's some things you could probably learn out of this. He said, well, yeah, but we're never going to play a team that runs this offense, which is fair, but still, I mean, there's still some things that you do in every game that
Yeah,
you could take out of this one, and one is obviously tackling, and it's
I think the tackling's
just
been a problem the whole season, in my opinion. It just doesn't look sound. Um, And I think that's got to be something they go back to the drawing boards and they start drilling it again in practice, which is hard because, we live in a day and age where you could only tackle so much in practice.
Yeah.
You really can't at this point of the season tackle in practice. Not live bodies, at least.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that game yesterday. There's a couple other quick things. Saturday is the final home game, and it's senior day. And what's that like? Did you do one or two of those?
I did one senior day. I didn't do the first one because I knew I was coming back again.
You
So I
didn't
was
do
like,
the
nah,
you didn't do the
I don't
Jake
want to do
Luton,
this
you
whole
didn't do
thing
the
again.
Jake Luton 3 senior days.
Who was that?
Jake Luton, I think he did 3 senior days.
I never understood that. I'm like, man, if I'm coming back next year, I'm not doing all this again. I'm doing this one time only. Um,
Yeah.
Senior day special, man. It really is. How many people are there? Is there anyone who's truly? It should be Jaden Robinson, Joshua Gray. Who else?
Oh, I'm supposed to get a list here. I think there's there. Yeah, there'll be guys that will go through it that are still on the fence as to whether they're coming back, and so they'll go through senior day and then decide. Or I mean, because there's still a lot of guys that have technically could graduate and
Yeah,
they might go through it.
I'm just hoping
I
we
mean,
can send
like
some of
like
these.
Skylar Thomas, for example. I mean, he's wrapping up his 4th year. I mean, maybe he's got his degree. I don't know how close he is to the degree, and he could go through it. I don't know that he is, but those type of guys could.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just hope
but
they could kind of make these last few games for these guys special because senior day definitely is a special thing, especially after you've been there so long. Like these guys, Josh Gray and Jaden Robinson, man, I don't even know how long we've been making fun of them, but I was there
yeah,
for a long time too, so no worries.
yeah, you were gonna say Josh Gray has been there so long he's got grandkids already or things like that.
Yeah, right.
Didn't he came into school the same year as you did, didn't he?
Yeah, but I believe he gray shirted the
He did, yeah.
2018.
He gray shirted, but 2008, and Jaden came in your year too, didn't he?
Yeah, they both came in. We
2018.
all came in the same class.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, does it take you out of your game at all, senior day, just emotionally, or can you snap into it pretty quickly?
I think you can snap into it pretty quickly. I used to think kind of it did, but um, during senior day, I'd kind of, unless it was like a guy I was really close with, I was kind of, locked in the locker room. But when I went out there for my last day, if anything, it was even motivational. Just like, man, like this is surreal. Last time running out of this tunnel, just like looking at all the fans. I mean, it was awesome. Um, that's
That
something you
was
can
also a
pretty easily snap into.
that was also a huge game too, the Washington game.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Was that senior day?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot on the line that day, so it wasn't like you needed you know a kick in the rear end or
right. I
something to
didn't
get
need any
going.
motivation for that game.
Yeah. Who was there? Your parents and your wife
Yeah, my
and
parents, my wife, my sister. That's really it.
yeah,
Yeah, my brother
darned
couldn't make it.
Isaiah.
He
He
was
was
he was playing his own game and whatnot.
yeah, yeah. Uh, well, then the last thing the game is obviously important too. It's Washington State. There's a lot of storylines that'll be coming out of this game. The two leftovers.
The
I think
two
one of our guys referred to.
leftovers.
I think one of our guys referred to this as the Codependence Bowl. The
Wow.
the two teams left behind.
You guys are
But
cooking us.
and then Washington State, they're coming off a loss to New Mexico, and so their CFP thing pretty much shot. So be interesting to see how the Cougars bounce back from that, and whether Oregon State's got anything left. And I mean, they got any pride, I suppose. We're going to see we'll see a decent game on Saturday, but I don't know.
Hey,
What do you think we'll see on Saturday?
whatever you got left, this is the time to let it loose. These coaches have been hiding anything. It's time to show the world. Let's see something.
Yeah, I don't feel like we've seen enough gadget plays this year.
Yeah,
Feels like it's
I
time
think
to
we'll
see
we'll
like
start to
three or
see some.
four. Haven't seen a fake punt in a while either. That's another one that seems like it's going to
Yeah, man.
show up here at some point.
let's get some special teams kind of wins in there, man. Let's win special teams at least. Hey, I would
The
say that's one phase of the game we probably were pretty. I would say we
Yeah, that
won
was
that
what
one.
I. Yeah, I wrote that at the end. I said, yeah, that's the one thing that that you could hang your hat on was at least Josh Green was, he averaged 56 yards on 4 punts.
That's awesome.
Had that one that dropped at the 3, blocked a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't know about. I mean, I don't know about kickoff coverage. They only had one.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
punts.
mix that
But
with some good offense and a little bit of good defense, and we're cooking with hot oil.
yeah. I mean, until it's over, I guess you can't say it's over, but they got to beat Washington State and they got to beat Boise State. So I mean, that is a tough. That's a tall order, man.
It's a
Tall
tall
order.
order. You're right.
But it's not like the Cougars are a team that they've had your number for quite a few years.
And don't remind me. I don't like those
It's
guys.
been. And you were probably like 1-5 against them.
I can't even. Yeah, I think we won one game against them. That was when Cam Ward was there.
There was 2 games. I mean, two. Well, all 3 of the games at Pullman went right down to the wire. I think when you were
Yeah.
2019, obviously was a 54-53 game. The one in last year, was last year. I'm trying to remember last year. Yeah, last year you lost. They got out. Remember they got out of the gate real fast, and then you
Yeah.
guys came back. They still won. And then there was the game in 21, I think, where I mean, you guys were moving the ball up and down the field, but then they scored late or something and won by like a field goal or something.
Yeah.
They all went right down the wire, and Washington State won them all.
Yeah. I'll never forget when 2020 they had like a wide receiver, and I remember Isaiah Dunn told me this, but like they were chirping at each other, and then he was like, "Yeah, we don't lose to Oregon State. We've never lost to Oregon State." And he was just like, "Damn, he's right."
Yeah, he was. But there was a time when Oregon State couldn't lose to Washington State. Before you came there,
Yeah.
there was a period like in the early, like from 2010, I don't know, 8 to 10 to 14, Oregon State couldn't lose to Washington State. Now it's just the other way around. But
Let's bring that
I
era
guess it
back.
just takes
Let's
one
do it.
game. Yeah, well, we'll find out Saturday. It's a 4 o'clock. I keep saying it's 3:30. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff. So good time. Good time of the day for a football game. So,
Beautiful time.
you gonna be there?
I won't be there for this one. That Saturday's been tough for me, but I'll be there in spirit.
Try to watch it on TV or on tape or something.
Yeah, I like to get the full. It's kind of hard when you're there in person to kind of see all the overview, and I like hearing the
Yeah.
commentating and whatnot. But I'll be there in spirit.
Regardless, I'll grill you about it next week. Find out what you thought of Game 11. So,
All right.
that's gonna do it for this week's podcast. We'll be back, like I said, next week to talk about Oregon State game against Washington State. How Senior Day went, and then we'll take a look at the last game of the season, Boise State, on a Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. So we'll see you next week.
Go Beavs.